All right. Here we go. Hi, good morning. This is Anthony Parent of IRSMedic. And as just mentioning to Keith, I'm wearing one of my best mountain bike jerseys. That's the best I could do this morning. So bear with me. Good morning. We're going to have a fun episode this morning. We're going to talk about something. We're going to be talking about a few things going on. Number one, as you know, we had Solomon Yue on the channel, the Republican Dream Team, the man responsible for getting Donald Trump to put the promise to end double taxation for Americans overseas. We had him on the channel, and boy, were we pumped for what was happening, but nothing made it in. It was an explicit campaign promise that Donald Trump made, and my heart broke when it did not make it into the one big beautiful bill. But one big beautiful bill has a lot of question marks on that, and I'm not entirely sure. And one thing is, Solomon has been silent. But if there's one thing I know about Solomon, he's not doing nothing. Solomon, I think, more than anyone, feels maybe a little bit neglected, I would say, by President Trump. So I do think things are going on. I haven't spoken to Solomon. I think he has a secret strategy going on, and I will respect that. If he wants to reach out to me with an update, he knows how to get to me. So anyway, with me today is my special guest, my good friends, Keith Redmond, the formidable Keith Redmond, who runs the American Expatriates group on Facebook, and a real grassroots advocate who's really created a fantastic community of Americans overseas who are greatly, grossly, insanely impacted by the U.S. tax code and really citizenship-based taxation. Good morning to you, Keith. How you doing?
I'm good. Just the other day, we quote unquote celebrated 11 years of the group. So since its founding on
Wow.
Facebook, 11 years.
Oh my God! Well, that's
Yeah,
fantastic. All right. Well, congratulations. Yeah. So head over there. I have a link there.
yeah.
There it is. If you haven't joined Keith's group there, go ahead there. So Keith's been instrumental in getting us all together, and a longtime guest on the channel. I mean, I think 2017, 2016, Keith is probably. So we're probably coming about 10 years of that. So fantastic. And
Yeah.
also, and also joining us today is none other than the great John Richardson, coming from Toronto, Canada, with his 32-ounce McDonald Land coffee this morning. Yes, there it is. There it is. Thank goodness. All right. Thanks for joining us today, John. So John is really an expert on citizen taxation, because he's a true citizen attorney. He really understands the interplay of various federal laws and how many times it overrules the common law and whatnot. So good morning to you, John. Good morning. And so we're going to go to you in one of the articles you have to start us off today to talk about, okay, what's going on. And maybe I guess we're going to have to figure out, maybe read the tea leaves a little bit on this. But I'm going to get up your webpage here, the article that we're going to talk about right now. And I'll just put a link to this if anyone wants to get to this. I'll put a link to this in the super chat as I go to the comments here. And hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, guys, good morning to you. Hi, Barry. How you doing? Hi, Andrew. Here it is. All right, fantastic. All right, so here's John, and we're seeking testimonials. So, John, there's our good friend. So this is great. We're getting the word out. We're seeking testimonials from Americans abroad who have been subjected to double taxation. This does remind me of something I got to say. Back in 2017. I remember this when we were getting testimonials for our hearing back with Mark
For the
Mark
faxing
Meadows.
hearing, yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of reminds me of that. But hey, John, good morning, and take it away from here. So, what's going on here? Why should we do it this time? And what kind of testimonials?
Okay. So let me begin with what I think you know, but often are afraid to articulate. For anybody who actually understands citizenship taxation, and the problem is that most people don't, okay, particularly in the academic community. But for anybody who actually understands it, which is the United States imposing its own tax code on people who don't live in the United States but live in other countries, and specifically on that income that has nothing to do with the United States. So just think about it for a minute, right? You close your eyes and, all of a sudden a bunch of Treasury's warriors are at the border. They're let into the country. they go to the banks and say, banks, you found all these people for us under FATCA, turn over their addresses. And, we're pointing to these people and we're saying, okay, because you were born in the United States, you were identified as somebody who we're basically going to impose our laws on your income, even though you don't live in the United States. And that includes income that has nothing to do with the United States. Now, that's what citizenship taxation really is. But then there's a part two to it. And not only are we going to impose our laws, but one of our deepest, dirtiest secrets is that the way that we're going to tax your income, because it's foreign to the United States, is more punitive than even a U.S. resident would pay. So, for example, you want to buy a mutual fund, you buy Templeton Mutual Fund in Buffalo, New York. That's a clean fund. You buy the same thing in Toronto, an hour away. That's a dirty fund. And because it's dirty, we're going to impose very punitive taxation on that to the tune of possibly up to 100% of the gains, doing total violence to Warren Buffett's maxim, my favorite holding period is forever. No, I can go on. But then,
I might want you to, because you know how much I love this, John. This is just music to my ears as you intertwine your years and years of wisdom and knowledge and exposing the truths. All right, yes, please. I think yes, please.
One more, and then I think we've done enough. I think the point will have been made. We don't have damage for the day. We can save some more for another podcast. But let's imagine, okay, that you are born in the United States and you want to set up are you ready for this? A corporation, not under the laws of the United States, which would be a clean, pure corporation, but rather under the laws of, say, Canada or another country, which makes it a presumptive vehicle for tax evasion.
Oh, and gross. Yeah, very.
So what we're going to do is we're going to say, you know what, we're going to, you think you're being cute by setting up a corporation? Because we're going to look inside that corporation and we're going to say, well, look at this. The corporation made a profit. You're going to have to pay tax on those profits, even though you never received them, right? And this is, sort of the subpart F regime, et cetera. Now, I want to point out, and guilty, but I want to point something out here. And the transition tax, remember, 36 years of
well, there you go.
But I want to point something out here, that not only is this in and of itself ridiculously unjust, unfair, and in my view, an override of the tax treaties, which, by the way, is the reason it was drafted in this way, because the standard tax treaties prohibit the United States from imposing direct taxation on a foreign corporation, right? On its foreign income, et cetera, okay? But what I want you to notice about this is that not only is this bad, but it actually lends itself most of the time to something that the United States is a world leader. In fact, I don't even think there's even a close.
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
And that is double taxation.
Double taxation. There's no one like it. And I mean, it's double taxation for things that aren't even that. So, and this is the point. And here's really a point, and something to illustrate what John's saying is that if you are a shareholder in a foreign corporation and they decide to only distribute X dollars to you, well, no, your income is also what they didn't distribute to you in some cases.
Well, that's right.
Which also may never be your income, because maybe the company.
Yeah, maybe you never get it, right? Maybe
you may never get it, but hey, the IRS says, well, you know what? You're thinking again. You're thinking. You know what? It's your thoughts. You're thinking that corporate income that they were making. Yeah. You're getting greedy on that. Yeah, we're going to tax it too, buddy. That is the American way.
On this point here, bit of a diversion. Okay, just for a second. But I'm actually very interested in, these are called CFCs and controlled foreign corporations. I came across this book that I bought off a used bookstore site. See this little book?
Yep.
So I paid, I think, $120 for this. Does that sound insane to you?
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
It's called The Taxation of Foreign Controlled Corporations, right? And this is it's a 1986 worldwide study. I mean, I actually do find this stuff. Well, during the day, I find it interesting. During the night, it's an easy way to go to sleep. Okay, so it serves my interests either way. Okay, but what's fascinating about it is I bought this from a used bookstore in the United States. Like it's like it's unopened, like nobody's read it. Okay, ever. Does that surprise you?
All right, let me check it with you. I want to make sure we haven't lost Keith here yet. Keith, I mean, this is your passion. Have we lost you on kind of? I mean, you're following along on the outrage of sort of where we're going, and that the fact is most people simply don't understand it. We've kind of explained it we've just rehashed it. Have we lost you? Any questions?
No, you're correct. Most people don't understand it unless they actually live it. And it's very hard to explain to someone who really has no clue.
It's very difficult.
Well, I think that's part of the difficulty.
Yeah. But anyway,
because I can speak. I'm still learning. I'm still learning about different.
We're all still learning. We're all students.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the book. Yeah. Let's get. All right. Sorry. So, John. So, can we learn anything from the book?
Is it came from a library originally about 10 miles from where I live in Canada. So it comes from Canada to this used bookstore. I pay $120.
Oh, that's funny.
This is a rare book. You can hardly find it anymore. Okay, and I am the proud owner of this. There you go. The Taxation of Controlled Foreign Corporation. But the point is,
problem, John. You have a.
The point is, Anthony. Okay, this is exactly what's going on with Subpart F transition tax and GILTI, right? I mean, somebody's got to understand this. Might as well be me. Okay, somebody's got to understand this somewhere along the road in terms of what it's really.
Somebody on earth might as well understand it. There it is. So, John Richardson, thank you for sacrificing your brain for humanity to be the one to understand.
That's sort of how I feel. Although, in this book, this was published by the Canadian Tax Foundation. I was thinking of you, Anthony, because they said, well, you could order copies of it, but it's way out of print. And this is in 1986. Here's what it says. Copies are available at $75 per copy. This is 1986, $75 per copy. But a 15% discount is order of 10 or more. When I read that, I immediately thought that probably everybody in your firm would want one, Anthony.
We would want one. Well, I also think it's like, well, the thing is like, well, you're looking for $70 for a book that I'm going to guess didn't consider the 1986 adjustment. So, because it was printed in 1986. So I'm not sure how helpful it would have been in 1987. So, but
the problem with this stuff is that, you've got to understand the inner workings of this, and it's, and it's very, very difficult. And also, the United States has corrupted, poisoned a good part of the world that has, followed it into this whole CFC regime. But in any case, bottom line is that this leads to double taxation. Now, why would it lead to double taxation? Because the United States will impose tax on the income even though you haven't received it. And they won't tax it when it is received because you've already paid the tax. But the point is that if you pay out later at a different time where you live, there's a good chance that the foreign tax credits will not work because of a difference in timing, right? Yeah. So, this stuff opens the door to all kinds of double taxation. And by the way, the mutual fund thing, there are three ways to deal with them. Two of the three absolutely guarantee double taxation. And, the way PFICs need to be understood is but through a very, very simple principle. And the basic principle is if you do not pay us tax on money before you've actually received it, we'll essentially double tax you when you do receive it, right? I mean, that's how this stuff actually works. Now, the point is here that not all the problems with citizenship taxation are double taxation, but there's plenty of them. And I've given you some examples, and there are more. But now, why does this phrase double taxation matter? It matters because the Trump pledge was to end double taxation. Okay, it was not to end citizenship taxation. It was probably not even to end situations where the United States taxes, but the other country doesn't. Although I'm not sure he really understood who understands this? Nobody, right? Right. Well, but if we interpret it narrowly, right? So double taxation. So we hold him to his word. Now, so here's what's happening. There's actually, compared to 10 years ago, there's actually a good deal of energy out there, trying to solve the problem for Americans abroad. They don't all define in terms of double taxation. Obviously the solution is to end citizenship taxation altogether, meaning that citizenship cannot be used as a criterion for tax residency at all. But so far, only Seat and Keith and Anthony are willing to propose something as radical and terrifying as, ending citizenship as a criterion for tax rate. So therefore, what we're left with a whole pile of workarounds, right? Everybody's saying, we believe in citizenship taxation. We're Americans, therefore we believe in citizenship taxation. We just don't apply to us. So you know what? Let's get a carve out for certain people, who live outside the United States, et cetera. And although I support everything and everybody who does this stuff, who advocates for change, I think it's important to understand that, what these things are really saying is let's keep citizenship-based taxation intact, but just try to get some kind of a carve out, right? Okay, so that said, now, there was a pledge from President Trump, and it was right there. Everybody saw it on YouTube, okay, to end the double taxation. Now, there was also, the Hood bill, was going on then, very reminiscent of the 2018 holding bill. And I think that there was a lot of hope that, that something would make it into this, this big, beautiful bill, et cetera, and it didn't. And understandably, there was a great deal of disappointment on that. But after having watched what was going on, all the politics in the big, beautiful bill, part of me is actually relieved that it never became part of it. Because, there would have been a huge open discussion about this, and who knows where that would have gone. But in any case, the point is that the good thing, the bad thing about citizenship taxation is that it exists. The good thing about it is that until it's dealt with, don't worry, it will still be there to solve in the next major piece of legislation. So that's the good news, and that's where we are. The next major piece of legislation or legislations, whatever. Okay, the point is that there is more stuff going on. Now, Republicans overseas. Okay, smaller organization than DA, but the Republicans Overseas Tax Group, and I think this needs to be understood, has been working on this as a problem since 2014, right? I mean,
that is right, and that's key to remember.
Yeah.
We didn't start, this was not something that started in 2024.
No, absolutely not. And even the Trump pledge, I mean, I just can't believe some of the things I see people say came after most people have voted. And I think that's the point here, okay? That the Republic of the Art, and they were responsible for the holding bill in 2018, et cetera. And I think it really needs to be said that they're not asking for your money. Never seen a fundraising initiative from RO. Please give us money to help us save, in citizenship taxation. They're not asking for money. And interestingly, they're really not even asking for votes. Although I'm sure, obviously they'd be happy to have your vote, but they're not out, around the world. What's her name? Getting Jane Fonda up there to say that she was once an American abroad, things like this, right? So, so I've known these people personally for a lot of years, and I can tell you that, they are committed to this cause. Why, I'm not entirely sure, interestingly, because Solomon Yue does not.
Let me just get to the heart of the matter. And I think we have a comment here, just sort of, I think that would express here. I think it's, it's Barry's, I think, expressing a common sentiment for sure. Personally, I don't believe Solomon has anything going on.
Okay, that's all good. That's all fine.
Okay.
All right. But the thing is this, all right, that the only way that change is going to occur here, whether it's, from any one of these, from the Republicans overseas or the Tax Fairness Group or the Hood Bill or the DA Tax Committee, okay, it's kind of like this. None of these groups, I don't think, can do this alone, okay, because if Americans abroad are going to pretend this doesn't exist, or pretend it doesn't exist because it's not a problem for them, even though they see their neighbor having his life savings confiscated through the transition. Oh, not a problem for me. It didn't affect me. Or they don't care about their children, being able to leave the United States, to live a life, etc. In other words, if you really don't care about anything, other than perhaps your own situation, then, maybe this isn't a problem. But for those who do think this is an issue, and to be very clear, I think that citizenship taxation supplied by the United States is one of the greatest evils in the history of the world. Okay, I mean, if you really understood what it is, etc. So, I mean, if you care about anything, then I think you should care about this. And the point is that your help is needed. This is so complicated to understand that unless people like Solomon or the DA tax committee or the tax fairness group, or any of these groups, right? Unless you can help them make the case, right, for why this needs to be changed. And part of making the case is showing that this is not a myth. Okay. And remember that the academic community, remember the tax community is perpetuating the myth that citizenship taxation is only a filing. It's only a filing requirement. Well, that's bad enough, of course. But okay, there's no double taxation. And we know, anybody who understands this knows that the people who make that claim either are incredibly stupid and don't understand what's going on, or they're liars. And you can take your pick. It really doesn't matter. The point is that this does exist.
Yeah.
And the way this works, the actual impact of it needs to be explained. Okay, so what we are looking for are testimonials, letters. You can send them to me. I'll even help you improve your letter. I will do that. Okay, to get this information in the hands, okay, of the people who are trying to do this work for you. Now, to put it another way, I hate to break it to you, but this has been going on an awful long time. It's very difficult to get this kind of change. And as I put in the post, and Parviz, tweeted, okay, change of this magnitude is absolutely, positively not a spectator sport, and we need your help.
I'm John. I am ready now. I'm ready to push this because here's a few things going on. Is number one, and this is something what people need to know about the law. Cases are won on facts, not law. The law is backfilled into fill out whatever the outcome the facts kind of determine what the facts beg. So facts will win a case. Facts that shouldn't matter do matter. When you have people that people want to identify with getting harmed, when the heroes of the story are getting harmed, the heroes in the narratives are getting harmed, those are the kind of people whose stories we want to hear from. Those are the ones. Hey, I'm this kind of person who has this sort of value to society, and here's how the tax code is making my life fairly impossible and making it difficult to comply with. And now number two, and this is something that, I've been sort of wondering what Solomon's been up to, but this is what we got to say, guys. I'm going to just disagree. Sensei Joe, I know you're in the house. I'm going to disagree with you guys. Understand, and this is the truth, okay? I don't think we would be talking about this without Solomon. I'm going back to history. There's a reason why we got the hearing in 2017. There's a reason why we came together. And who was the person whipping that ship, creating that ship, driving that ship, attracting other people into it? The person who started this is Solomon. And so it was actually good enough to actually get this as an explicit campaign promise. So, really, he's done everything. That's the reason we're here. To discuss this is because of Solomon. So, if he's asking for our help, I'm going to say he's the one driving it. We should really be reaching out, and that he's not stopping. And I mean, come on. The guy put his name on this. He's got everything going on it. He's the last one who doesn't want it to work. Yeah. So I got to disagree with everybody. I got to think Solomon's still going on it.
Obviously, this has been a long-term project for him, and it continues, and it has ups and downs, right? But it has been a long-term project for him, and that's what's important. Okay, consistency, goals, and belief are far more important, than just sort of a day-to-day emoting, right? But here's the thing. So we have all these individual Americans abroad out there, and I really have got to say at this point that you are very much a part of the problem, okay? Not in creating citizenship taxation, but in not standing up for yourselves and explaining the problems and demanding change, Okay. And I don't think that a great deal is being asked of you people at all, to share your experience and get it in. I mean, how hard is that? I mean, even if you think, which many of you do, you live in this world of perpetual negativity and hopelessness and helplessness, okay, which there's no mileage in that, people, no mileage in it, okay? When you have the opportunities to try to do something, you should be stepping up. And I think you should. I mean, it is outrageous that there's probably under 100 people in the world, who actually invest any time in solving this problem. I mean, you should be embarrassed.
All right,
Okay?
you know what? I am also gonna send it out to, I have a pretty big client list, so I'm gonna send this out. I do believe in this, and I will mention this. I'm gonna send this out to all my clients to let them know, to say, hey, look, please share your story. There's a few in particular that I think would really, fit the bill for sure. So I will reach out to support this. I think it's creating the story, and that I don't know how many things won the first time around, right? And I don't know how many things won the second time around. And it's just, and it's really staying on a target. And I think it's one of the things as we're educating around now. I do want to, let's see, we do have to end on time today. I got a bunch of things to get to, so I do want to make sure we cover everything. And at this point, I think so. I think we have some updates going on here. Now, I wanted to go over like any updates keep going on in your group and questions going on. And I want to take some questions from an audience, basically questions about what the reform is, and then questions maybe even about what you should do in your situation and problems that you're having. We kind of have a general question and answer that we want to do for the second part. But if you do, and this is our call to action right now, to send your story to John, write his email, citizenshipsolutions@protonmail.com. And here's the thing. This is the problem that we're putting his email here because it's hard to reach people. It's so hard to reach people. We could just put his email on there and we're still not going to get that many people. So if you are watching it, it's really for you to reach out to him, send your story. Hey, look, it might even give you some feeling of relief to actually articulate the abuse that you've gone through. And really that's what it is that, this is, as John said last week, and I think another great quote from him, really, the tax code, and maybe in the entire U.S. code, is just normalized abuse. It's just normalized abuse every day. As a matter of fact, abuse. And that's a lot of the things that we're going to end. So I want to go over to Keith and just sort of get general kind of things going on and sort of, what are any updates and really where you're hearing things you're hearing from people in your group. What are new concerns, or is it the same things? Just give us an update. What's going on?
Well, first off, can you hear me okay? Because my connection is not the greatest. Okay.
We are getting quests to see your face. Just letting you know, we are. So Barry, we are just all right. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's usually the same old questions, but I spoke to John yesterday, and there's one theme that is coming up with clients that it might necessitate another podcast, is that there's a lot of people who are Americans overseas who are either they're in the U.S. tax system now or not, and they may have to enter or re-enter the system later on, and they're taking financial actions in their countries of residence without taking a look at what the ramifications are with the U.S. tax system.
Yeah.
And they're not doing their due diligence before they reach out to invest in a particular financial product, let's say in France or in Germany or in Japan, without looking at those consequences. And then the opposite is also occurring, is people who are investing in a particular financial product in the United States, and they're not taking a look at the ramifications from the U.S. tax system as an American overseas, or the ramifications of their own country's tax system by doing so. So there's a lot of preparatory work that an American overseas really needs to do before they take any type of financial action. And just because you don't happen to in the U.S. tax system today, that doesn't mean down the road you will continue to not be in the U.S. tax system. All you need to do is have an inheritance from the United States that's a taxable event, and then you're in the system, and then you have to deal with all those other financial actions that you took, and there could be some consequences. So that's what I find with people with whom I'm speaking, that they haven't done their due diligence ahead of time.
Wow. Well, Keith, thank you for that. And
Yeah,
I
and it's
think,
important, and it's
yeah,
important to do that.
yeah, and you're actually echoing a lot of what I've been seeing too now, because a lot of the things that we're seeing are people, as we're getting more into the boomers joining other generations in the great beyond. Really, the issues that we're seeing are involving probate, estate planning, and that people are making moves without considering, what is actually going to happen. I think the real challenge, and this is something that
Exactly.
this is one of the challenges, and this is what I would advise people to do, because I have seen some incredible financial planners overseas who truly get it, and I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
The problem is they're not everywhere, and there's not that many. There's one in
No,
UK
they're
that
not.
there's one in UK I spoke to, super sharp, really understood the whole citizenship-based taxation. I was really impressed, and so that's kind of. But my point is, you can get somebody like that it is possible. And if you can't get somebody, this is where we often reach out, and when
Yeah.
we're creating estate plans for people to say, well, actually, you
Right.
don't
Well,
want to buy that investment because here's
yeah.
why. This is going to create this. Your heirs are only going to see this if we do that. Why don't we do this instead? So
Right.
that's bringing up a really
Right.
good point in
Well,
these issues.
also keep in mind, Anthony, that yes, there are people out there that can do it, that proactive financial planning. But there's one hurdle that a number of them, that Americans overseas do encounter, is that they have to have a certain amount of money to financially plan, if you will.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the financial planner is not interested. And that's why I kind of do what I do, is I just sit down and different options for people and then turn them on to the appropriate person to do that planning.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I think that's great. And, sometimes, it doesn't take us a long time. For us, sometimes we can give someone, basically a really good U.S. tax plan. Sometimes, like an hour, because there's not, oh, you want to do this and this? Located here, you could do this. And so that's
Right.
often something we do. And so, because, yeah, you got to get
Right.
that. It is the most, it is. And I would say, my first cases when I did tax resolution were from, estates gone bad.
Yeah.
And then also, and then the other problem is domestically, or just really, and this is the other problem that I found, is that I belong to a lot of tax advisor groups about, and, I'm really one of the few who do international work aside from like the massive firms. There's really not a lot there. So it's like,
Right.
it's difficult, I would say, there to find people.
Yeah. So
So
that, to answer your question, that
yeah, thanks.
been a
Anything else? Yeah.
common
So
theme with,
yeah. So people doing things without getting
yeah.
advice, and then sort of like, oh yeah, that lack
And then
of
they
thinking.
realized, they really messed up. I mean, you have to deal
Yeah,
with what you have to deal with. But,
yeah,
I was a Boy Scout, so the motto was always be
yeah.
prepared.
Be
So
prepared.
always be prepared. Yeah.
All right.
And last point, and play out different
Oh,
play you do, you invest. Okay,
yeah.
that's all I have.
Well, that's great. And I do want to just take a little time and talk about some of the updates that I've seen, and some of the things I've been talking about on Twitter, and really how it relates. I have fallen into the common law bros. I'm with them now on Twitter, and it's really a fascinating thing, because as the interplay between tax administration and the common law, and really common law being our foundational rights, some fascinating things going on there. Really, really helpful things, and really bringing to my attention Neil Gorsuch. I want to thank Andrew Prune. I know Andrew's on here today. Thanks for joining us. So really look into there. And I think this is, what John was saying earlier before. Don't like being like, nothing can happen. Nothing can happen. I feel like things are accelerating unbelievable. Before there wasn't anything happen. I've been there. I've bet, things have not been happening, but things have been happening forever. And here's a great point from Andrew. And so this is a fantastic insight too when we apply common law principles to like what's going on here. And so in this case, we're talking about CFCs before control foreign corporations. And in this case, basically it's this, right? I think Andrew's point is this. So the U.S. legislature, right? The U.S. Congress is creating a foreign corporation. You see, it does. A foreign corporation is a corporation formed in another country. So it is actually that is a good point. The legal fiction of a foreign corporation is created in the tax code. There's really something. And these are the things you start thinking about. And so what I would say is that if you are getting mopey about things and not moving, that really start to look into some of the common law. Really join us on Twitter. There are some incredible, and people have been doing this. They've been doing this a lot longer than I am. I am stepping into some truly, truly brilliant people. And where this comes up is I think one of the things that I've been seeing in some cases that I've been helping out on is the IRS truly has some huge problems in administering its code. And one big area right now is in crypto taxation. And this is probably a pretty good time for me to give an update on what's going on in there. If you understand that there's been 2 recent cases to be decided, Loper Bright in West Virginia versus EPA, that now require some semblance of the law regulations to the regulations much bear some semblance to the law, and you can't decide major policy decisions by regulation. We have to understand those are recent cases that have been around, and the Chevron deference has been blown out of the water. It doesn't exist. Well, when we get to crypto taxation, we find something incredibly interesting. We find that the IRS's entirely basis to tax cryptos comes from IRS Notice 2014-21. So it is not even a regulation. So therefore, with Chevron deference gone, that agencies' reasonable interpret or claimed reasonable interpretations will just be assumed automatic. Where I'm at is I don't even see that IRS Notice 2014-21 could survive any constitutional scrutiny. It's a made-up law. Now, this is the problem for the IRS. Why it is such a massive problem for them is that they did this in a rush. They knew cryptos were a thing to a degree. No one was acting on anything. They didn't know what the problem was. And so they're like, hey, look, we'll just tax it as property because that's going to allow us, that's going to be the greatest benefit for us at the IRS. If we just deem it to tax it as property, that will provide us most gains. What they didn't understand and what they still don't quite understand is cryptos cannot be taxed like property because they're not a security. The problem with cryptos is this. They commingle with each other. When you buy one crypto and you get it and put it in your wallet, it's all together. You can't keep the lots separate. So you can't possibly track basis to any meaningful degree. As I understand it, and my current understanding of it is that all the software does is it infers what your possible basis is, therefore creating a range of what your capital gain is. Therefore, when you are citing the truth of your tax return, that you possibly can't because you don't have a sum determinable, but rather what you have is a statistical range of possible income points. Well, it doesn't say, hey, this is a tax on possible income points of your capital gains. It says it's an income tax. So I think there's significant problems. Now, the other problem, and this is really why I'm bringing up Andrew, and this is what I wanted to talk about, is what we're going back and forth with is that Justice Gorsuch has very clearly stated that administrative law judges, which include tax court judges, are not federal judges, and he basically calls them correctly federal employees reviewing the work of other federal employees. And his problem is that it's much easier for a federal employee to punish a private actor through administrative courts than rather going to the scrutiny of a federal court where they're just another litigant, but rather they're all these home fields. what is very curious, and I mean, he said something very strong, and maybe I can get that up. Andrew, if you have a link to that, what you sent me earlier today, or over this morning, I don't know what time it was, that he basically says that federal tax court judges are cosplaying. They're cosplaying as courts, and they're not courts of record. Tax court is essentially an illegal court, and it's just the IRS reviewing the work of the IRS and changing and perverting every part of the process. And one update, and that's one thing I would say, tax court is so backlogged, and it sends every case out to settle. And what they often do in that settlement, and this is what you need to watch out for, is they will build the record they were missing before they made that adverse decision. So it's not they're not really playing necessarily all that nice with their with the law. And so those are some updates going on right now that I could say. And let's just get, so I think we got some time. All right, we got some time. We're going to get to some comments here. So let's see what we got here. So, all right, guys, I might go in reverse chronicle order here. Okay, here it is. I think Andrew's got the link I was looking for. Where is it here? All right, it's coming. All right, we'll get to that. I'll try to share that page of Neil Gorsha. Wait a second. Or what does Joe say? Okay, yeah, I wish these so-called third parties jumped. Because Sensei Joe, thank you for that comment. Thank you very much. Sensei Joe, politics has no remedy. That's the problem. We're not going to vote our way out of this, really. And you could really see that. And I think that's something that I would, again, want to push people into joining the common law movement, because you could see what is happening. Basically, all these statutes are, and this is, Andrew used the word, and I really appreciate this. All these statutes are legislative interference with our fundamental rights. There's no party to vote for. There's no party to vote for to undo that. The way to do that is the people must do that. So there's no one we're going to vote out. And that's why it's always a dead end. That's why we always end up disillusioned every time. And again, hey, look, we voted for Trump. He promised to end it. He hasn't yet. Maybe he will. Hopefully he will. But that is the nature of the beast. And so we cannot expect justice from politics. The entire point of politics is to sell political interference. That's the point. That's why we are where we are. It's all for sale. Everything, every part of the U.S. code is for sale and has been bought. I really do think that's the truth.
Anthony, I think we need a shout out to Sensei Joe, who's sort of a face in the crowd. He's really done tremendous work on this problem over the years. He's really what more people should be, if not everybody. And he's done great stuff. And also, I would add to that I think that he got the fair tax people involved in this as well. I think right. Yes. Sanjay, all your work, Joe, and keep it up.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, for joining us and everything. And and I would just say, hop on Twitter and follow us, and then you can kind of see where I think where this is going, because I actually see the end game peacefully. So it's pretty. So I feel much more relaxed. I feel far, because I see how it all could work out. And okay, great, perfect. Barry, thank you. Can I send my story? It's more about emotional damage than money. Of course. Exactly.
Yeah, I think on that point, what I want to do is put these into various categories. Okay. Because, one of the things about this, this whole, I've really come to see, and we talked about this a bit last week, every aspect of this as a pressure point of trauma, right, in the lives of people who are affected by it. And the emotional damage is very, very, very real. And in many cases, it is so incapacitating that people, get the idea that, they really, they can't dig their way out of this, that somehow they're not entitled to do financial and retirement planning like other people just because they're an American. So absolutely, yes. Thank you for that.
Right on. Here, I'm going to try to get to, let me see if I can get to this page here. I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, I can't click on that link, unfortunately. Oh, geez. That's the link to Neil Gorsuch. But if you are in the super chat, you may be able to get that. Sorry, Andrew, I can't get that up. We will, but other, if you want to check that out, it's really something, and I think that really will show the possibilities of how this outrage could end. It's really going to be something. All right, let's see here. We got other comments here. This is something. All right. Most damage was produced by the compliance firms. I'm kind of one of them. Hundreds of thousands of paperwork that no homeland Americans would do. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. But Ronald, I mean, this is I do think about this all the time. I think about this all the time. And it's a point I make when I think about what I own, everything I own. It's all because of the misery of the tax code. That's my entire financial existence is because of the misery of the U.S. tax code. I think about that a lot. And I think about, well, what will happen if it actually goes away? And I think about that and the first instinct is like, well, no, I don't want that to die. And that's the truth. Most tax professionals want the tax code to be unconstitutional because if the tax code was constitutional, they wouldn't have a job. What else are you going to do? All you know is tax. And it pays well and it gives you something to do. What else are you going to do? And honestly, I'm planning it. My firm, we have talked about it. We actually are considering that the IRS in its current form won't be whatever it is. And we're seeing it implode. We are seeing the IRS implode. It can't do basic things. It is all over the place. And meanwhile, Trump is looking like he's intentionally destroying it. Morale couldn't be possibly worse there. And the IRS is just falling over itself on basic things. So I think that's one thing to consider is that the people most likely to want to prop it up and the people really who have been propping it up and the people who make it seem inevitable and the people who are always selling it is the tax professional industry. And that's, not really the way. I'm okay if it goes away because there's so many other wonderful things to do, right? So thanks for that. And let's see here. What to see? I got for comments here. All right, Sensei, the U.S. is really the terrible things you can think of. Okay,
well, yeah, I think that there's perhaps some truth to that, but I think it's important to see how this works, right? And to kind of link this, to what you were saying about the whole tax compliance issue. So what we have is a culture of laws, right? The first requirement is that it be very difficult to understand. The second requirement is that the penalties for non-compliance need to be extremely disproportionate to whatever you did. The third thing is that the administration is sort of outsourced, right, to the tax compliance industry, who, why would people use a tax preparer anyway? I mean, it's only because of complexity and fear of making mistakes. So the tax compliance industry, I think has a vested interest in, in keeping the basic fear going. And, so the way they often lead is, here's the penalty for non-compliance, or, very often, by all means, not all of them, very often you hear them say, it's unclear whether you have to file 3520, so let's file a 3520, when the reality is the easiest way to get a penalty is to file a 3520. It's a real problem. And I think that people would serve themselves very, very well if they put some thought and maybe a bit of research into what their tax return should actually look like. I'm speaking to Americans abroad, right? What their tax return should actually look like, where they go and, put not their destiny, but, where they put in their hands a serious risk of financial damage. Look, tax preparers have every bit as much of a chance of damaging you as helping you. Okay, you need to protect yourself by understanding reasonably and defensively what your return should look like.
There you go. Absolutely. And here you go. And Borchell, good morning, Borchell. Hoping that politicians will fix anything that benefits regular public is like hoping that burglar will return your stuff.
Borchell, at the end of the day, this is going to be fixed because, it is so unjust, it is so outrageous that when the whole system collapses, you want to be around to pick up the pieces and align them in the right way, okay, and not just continue this stuff. So there's great value in working on this problem. I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, I hate to, quote one of these phrases, but the phrase, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, does come to mind here. But the bottom line is this: if people don't register, this is a problem. If people don't explain, this is a problem. If people don't contribute in whatever way they can to solving this, and I don't mean by money and votes, okay, I mean by identifying this as a problem, then yes, it will be solved, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, we have a specific question. Jason, I'm going to answer your question. I think that might be my wrap up. I do see your update. Good morning. Good morning, Jason. I'll do a wrap up to go over what you missed, but I want to get to a next question. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you going to get these in front of them? Do we know? Is that part of it yet, or is that to be determined?
Well, the short answer is at the moment, this is going to Republicans overseas who, continues to spearhead this. And, at that point, that will be determined. Now, Brandon, what I would suggest that you might want to consider doing is consolidating some of the things that you're publishing weekly into a, more of a general write-up, highlighting, various parts of them. And I think that would be enormously helpful. But, and continue what you're doing as well. But I do think
you know Brandon? You know Brandon?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, he's the head of tax fairness for Americans.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
abroad.
I'm sorry, Brandon. Well, thank you. Thank you for your work, Brandon. Thanks for joining us so much today. All right, I got to definitely check him out. All right, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I was aware of group, but it wasn't awesome. Thank you. Great to have you here. I think this is one thing. Ronald we have a few more minutes. Ronald has a comment here. How to do research in a language when they only have one basic understanding of the language, and I think that's always one point too. And maybe if someone has a testimonial to say, "Hey, look, English isn't my first language."
I think that some of the testimonials ought to be written in another language.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that would emphasize the point.
Yeah.
This is affecting people whom English is not their first language. So absolutely. I think that would be good. My thought is that, these things ought to be in categories.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, going back to, Brandon's appearance a minute ago. Okay. I absolutely believe and encourage, there are these varying, groups, organizations that they ought to be contributing to this. Absolutely. And the best way to do that is to not just, anybody can find the weekly blog posts. I mean, that's easy, but I think what needs to be done, and this is what I would encourage, I think I'll use the word ask, okay, to summarize those posts in various categories. Over the last, however long you've been doing this, year or 2 years, I don't know, we've had weekly write-ups, and rather than just give you all the write-ups, okay, here's a summary of the themes that are identified, who, and then cite the actually put a link, to the post, etc.
Right. But John, if I may interject for a second, because I think it needs to be reiterated for your purposes and for Solomon's purposes. The testimonials that will be submitted need to be about double taxation. Not about bank account closures, but about double taxation.
That of course is absolutely the focus, but I don't think that rules out. Okay,
it doesn't. Okay,
no, I don't know. It's really the related thing because I think it's all the same.
Fine. I think it's important for the audience to know.
Absolutely, and that's why I started with double taxation. And here's where I think that people ought to think about this very carefully. Okay. I get it, when I read something and says, "Oh my God, I can't deal with the compliance burden," right? I get that, and I understand it, and I 100% agree. That said, there are few Americans, whether inside the United States or outside the United States, who don't understand this as a compliance burden. And I think it's very difficult to distinguish Americans abroad, to somebody who really doesn't get this, from resident Americans just by talking about,
Right.
requirement to file forms and stuff like that. And, if I may make a suggestion to individuals, I mean, whether you participate in this or not, when you write this stuff up in terms of the compliance burden, I think it'd be really, really helpful to add that this is not required, by people in the United States specifically, or how it's different, from what's required in the United States. Because a lot of these things to me look like just, and I get it. Okay. I mean, I agree with it, but I can understand if somebody could just look at this stuff and say, what do you mean they're complaining about filing a form? And what's the problem?
Well, and this is the point I think that you're making, John, is that really, hey, look, don't worry about not having your own details right. We're here to help. Like, look, don't worry. Just get your story out. And the fact that you might get things wrong, and you probably will, is the whole point. It's the whole point.
Right.
That this is
Exactly.
Something
But
beyond.
is it really wrong if it's your experience? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there
You're
you
going to
go.
write down your experience. How can it be wrong?
Yes.
It's your experience.
Well, I think the bottom line here is this. I'm actually been going through this, or maybe I'm just seeing this more clearly because I'm thinking about this the last few days. But I'm working with 3 people right now. This week I've worked with 3 people who really cannot comply. They just can't. For varying reasons, including cost in some cases, to actually do this. And what are they supposed to do? I mean, how can you have an income tax system with any degree of credibility at all if it's impossible for the people to whom it's supposed to apply to comply with this?
Yeah, exactly.
How can, just on the most basic level, how can somebody, with 35 mutual funds, how can they comply with an 8621? It is simply impossible. It is impossible. The tax code is making them non-compliant. It's not them.
It's not, no. And it's actually the 8621 is the first time I encountered where you actually can't create an actual return, because with daily, reinvesting dividends, it's like, well, you have to do a cutoff of when you're reinvesting, because you could have kind of perpetually reinvesting ones. And I did think about that. One, you could actually just have one 8621 that could make your return go on for infinity. Really, I think so. And because you have to do a sampling, and that's generally what happens. Now, of course, the IRS has never made an official statement that any mutual fund is a PFIC, but the tax compliance industry has certainly made that law.
Well, if the tax compliance industry is created, this is a problem, and this is part of the danger.
Yeah.
I think.
Please include stories about your tax professionals. Oh, we know. Oh boy. We know, right? We know that.
Yes.
I mean, there are.
Yeah.
It's like it is. I mean, it's like blackmail, man. I'm just going to tell you that. Like what I hear these other firms do. Like you tell them something, they're going to blackmail you, dude, into hiring them, man. So, be careful.
Yeah. On that point, okay. Listen, I think that. I think you really need to be careful. The problem is most people, they'll just go online and, they'll see this and that. And, tax preparers in a moral sense, they run the whole spectrum of humanity. All right. Which is my polite way of saying there's a lot of assholes out there. Okay. And, you need to protect yourself from that kind of person. And if you're not comfortable with somebody, if you feel bullied, look, these people are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
A dime a dozen. Just say thanks very much, and go elsewhere. But the best protection you've got, in my view, is what people don't do is they don't do a preliminary step. What should my tax return look like? Right? They don't have to get it 100% right, but they can identify enough so they can understand, what's reasonable and what's not. And, if you're into things like, and then there's the interesting question of people who want to comply, but simply literally cannot afford the cost. What do you do with somebody like that? Well, if you want to be in compliance, you've got this, you've got that. So the answer would be, here, I'll give you an actual example. So somebody sent me this email, and in the conversation, he said, that his son was, wanted to set up a small business corporation, right? But it didn't make enough money to file U.S. taxes. And I said, well, okay, great. But I just want to make the point that may mean a 5471, and the 5471 has to be filed regardless of whether a tax return has to be filed, okay? Or, these mutual funds, if they're PFICs, et cetera. So, you got to be careful. So one thing that people can do, if they want, is to, imagine, that they're in compliance, or they want to be, and try to avoid some of these things. I mean, it's a real tragedy. And there's no question that U.S. citizenship in the 21st century is a disability. Why? Because of the tax code.
That's one reason. Yeah.
If I may interject also, is that there is absolutely nothing wrong when you have a preliminary meeting with a U.S. tax compliance professional to get a second opinion or a third opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think I encourage people to do that, because you just don't want to go with the first person that you've gone to.
I would say, well, unless it's me, but otherwise, yeah, no, I mean, it is. I would say, on that, it's really, you got to watch it. And I think you have to understand they might not really be on your side, and they might not care about you, but then you find ones that really are wonderful. And I find them around the world.
Exactly.
So absolutely. And there's, and there's not enough. So there's really not.
And that's why I'm always stating, and people sometimes say, why do you state this? You got to explore all of your real options.
Yep.
You have to do it. You have, in charge.
All right. Well, we're getting a lot more. We got Borchell, IRSMedic people resorting to ChatGPT for tax questions. I don't know what I mean. Whoa. AI is all over the place. And this is what I would say on the IRS's AI is, and this is what they do in crypto taxation is they use AI. They use third-party AI software from TaxBit. TaxBit is what they use to do their analysis. And so your private information is going over to a corporation that you don't control in any sort of way. Not that you can control the IRS. So it's the IRS does rely on AI. The thing is they don't, what cracks me up is they don't even see the problem. They don't see the problem that they can't come up with a number. And what the IRS is doing in cryptos is they're focusing on first in, first out, high in, first out, last in, first out, as if you can determine basis. It's sort of a sleight of hand, like, hey, let's have people focus on the inventory method. Then actually, like, wait a second, we can't get those numbers because that's not the way crypto is. When we made this law up out of our own imaginations, and we didn't really know what it is, we didn't really get any expertise, any insight from the industry, or any insight from Congress. So we just decided to make up this law on our own. That is kind of the way it goes, and that's often, I think, basically an overall reflective. Now we are short on time, but I do want to wrap up here, and I think we have it here. Jason Miller got here a little late, so I'm going to recap what we have in the call to actions of what happened today. So we discussed John Richardson's post where he is now seeking testimonials from people impacted by citizenship-based taxation, double taxation abroad. I mentioned that this was done before in 2017. Similar thing, we got a hearing. Then the conversation went to Solomon Yue and whether or not he was actually doing anything. John really brushed off that criticism as not quite relevant. I went a little bit deeper and I explained, look, the only reason why we're here talking about this, to be truthful, is Solomon. So the only reason why I'm kind of here talking about and being outraged about double taxation not being passed is because Solomon has been driving the ship and he's been getting a lot of things done and he hasn't been stopping. He did get Donald Trump to make that promise. I can't think of anyone more disappointed that it has not been made a part of the tax code than Solomon. I do believe he is working 100% still on this, and he's going to get something going. He doesn't stop. I believe John's ratification and agreement to work with him is proof positive. I don't think he can get a better seal of approval from anyone truly concerned about this. If John says it's a good idea, it's a good idea. We then moved over to Keith to discuss some of the issues that he's been seeing in his group, American Expatriates, which is about celebrating its 11th year in existence.
And one-on-one, and also
and
one-on-one.
Yeah, and Keith really mentioned the big issue that he's been seeing is a lot of people overseas are making moves without seeing the tax impact back in homeland America. This not just impacts a tax bill, but also an estate bill. Keith did mention that it's a great idea to get some advice, and while there might be financial planners overseas, sometimes there's limitations and it's not always able to find it. I did mention this is something that we do as part of our service, is that we will give people their perspective of what things will look like. People are free to take it, leave it, do what they want to do, get another opinion. That's fine with us. Then we started taking then we started taking comments, and we're really focusing on some of these comments. And some of the call to actions we have is about being proactive and not. And I think number one, politics has no remedy. That's really not the way. Even though we are doing this through a political process, understand the political process, win or lose, is not the final word. The people are the final word. The U.S. Constitution is designed to protect the fundamental rights of the people. What has happened since the signing of the Constitution is that federal statutes have been allowed, for the large part, to violate the fundamental rights, to interfere. We have political interference with our fundamental rights. That's the ultimate problem that we have. The solution could be not voting in somebody, but actually having a rule of law, forcing courts, creating courts, people convening grand juries. And one of the things in the call to action that I have for a lot of people is to join the common law movement. And I would say one great place to get started is with Andrew Prune. He was kind of my gateway. Precision is key. You can go on, Andrew, can we see you're on there? He is on Twitter. Follow him. And you also could follow me, and you'll see that there. And I'll now get to our contact, where you can reach us all and what you want to do. So for Keith Redmond, Keith, you can find Keith you can find him at his website at Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you go to American Expatriates. You can find him there. You can also find him on X. He's active on X as all of us. You can find him there. And Keith, Keith, tell me a little bit about what you do and why you are known as being formidable, but why you actually can really help people overseas with their questions.
Well, I just sit down with them and to go over their particular profile and situation and have them explore different real options and different scenarios. So that way they have a short-term and long-term strategy moving forward. And part of that may be that they need to take care of any loose ends within the U.S. tax system, or to stay away, depending on their situation, or they need to renounce or not renounce. But we sit down and we do a bit of mind mapping on what next steps are for them. So that way they walk away with the fear mitigated, and they walk away with some sort of map to move forward.
Oh, that's beautiful, Keith. I do appreciate that. And Keith, if you want to email him directly, here is his email. US_overseas_advocate@outlook.com. And maybe somebody even wants to reach out to you first. Keith, should I even submit my story? Right? Maybe that'd be a way to go. Right? That'd be a way to go.
Sure.
And now we want to go to John Richardson. I do want to also give John a plug. John is really one of the best. If you are thinking of renouncing your citizenship, and I mean the level of complications are incredibly difficult, and especially in John's expertise is he lives in Canada, especially if you're a Canadian thinking about renouncing your citizenship. Or U.S. Canadian, you really, really, really need to talk to John. And I would say anywhere in the world as well. Reach out to John about this along with your story of your tale. The call to action today that we have is to send, what we're talking about here today. On behalf of Republicans overseas. He's looking for written testimonials. These are the things that they're driving you nuts. Here's some things: transition tax, guilty, tax deferred, the things that are driving you nuts. Also, what about the tax industry? What about the IRS? How has it been for you? What's your confusion? Is this even your language? Reach out to him for that. And also, if you are thinking of renouncing your U.S. citizenship as you want to, because here, I just have this banner here, right here, the U.S. tax code, it is normalized abuse 100% all the way. But you know what? We know what it is, though, right? We know that. We know this isn't about a civilized society. We know taxes are the reason, one of the reasons why we're not civilized. We know that. So the lies, the myths, it's all coming off. We're exposing. And it also, I do want to plug this on John. We didn't discuss it much, but really, if you want to go a little bit more into, you can go to John's website. He has a nice little article about tax law professors. And I mean, one of the things that will drive you nuts is how academia has never found a tax it doesn't like. Hasn't found any compliance. They are in it together. Look, the academia is directly and indirectly funded by the federal government. Most of their things will always come down on the favor of big government. It's because, hey, look, that's who's feeding you. That is sort of the problem that we have. A lot of the background in this. And when Borchell, when we're using AI is going to academia as a source for things that are made up and say, well, why are you going to academia? They're the government. And then it might recognize that. So that is one thing to understand when you're looking at these things, is to be suspicious of anything written by academia and anything written by a tax professional. Let's be suspicious, because they all have the greatest self-interest in preserving their thing that makes their entire current livelihood possible. Be incredibly suspicious of everything and understand all the AI is pulling all that information, is saying, oh, that's the authority. But then you go and question that authority and you go find, and you're like, they don't have anything there. There are many, many things you could go down to say, like how AI will mislead you. It will 100% mislead you, often using the tax industry, the IRS itself, and then tax law professors as a source. So I do want to thank John and Keith today, and everyone joining us. Really a lot of new people. I think I met new people. Fantastic. And really a lot of energy going on. I think it's incredibly exciting. I love doing this. I love it more every day. And I do want to have a call to action here. If you are thinking, actually, by the way, if you think you might be a good guest, there's my email right there. aparent@irsmedic.com. If you have something you want to send to me, send it right there. And you can follow me on Twitter at IRS_medic. You can find me there. And also, if you, my website and my firm, we're at IRSMedic.com. I run Parent & Parent LLP. We are a U.S. law firm, tax law firm. We also do a lot of state probate tax work. I am in Wallingford, Connecticut, but I have a team well, not quite around the world right now. One of them is in Serbia. So I guess around the world. We really enjoy what we do, and we actually do talk. And we did have our weekly talk yesterday about, yes, how we do want to end the tax code. We were that one firm probably on the face of the planet who had to talk about how we got in this tax code. That's the way we are. So, by the way, if you are a tax professional and you are looking for a place to work for, a place that might have different values than any other tax firm, or mostly any other tax firm, you can reach out here too. We are looking for some tax attorneys, some people can help us with our workload as we're getting a little bit busier. So if you are, especially if you're tax prep, could use your resume. So send that over to me. Really appreciate that again. And if you also want to be guests. So with that, this has been, again, John, Keith, what an amazing episode. I should have been more excited for this one, I got to say. I should have been. So thanks again. And John, you know what? I think, John, you have a final word, don't you? I'm going to give you the final word.
All I would say is simply this, okay, that change of this magnitude is not a spectator sport. So it's either you do nothing and prolong what is the inevitable change, but maybe not in your lifetime, or you do something that has a chance of making not only your life, but the lives of your families, your community, a better place.
Beautifully said. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today.